Hello everyone and welcome to Call Sign Charlie Models. Time for another unboxing, and today we are doing another Tamiya great model of the McDonnell Douglas F-15C Eagle. I know this is a great kit. I built the Strike Eagle version of this model, and it came out absolutely brilliant with some added aftermarket, but again the main part of the build was absolutely amazing. With this kit, it is getting old for models wise. This was initially released in 1993 as a new tool, and in 1994 it came out with new parts. This actual boxing is from 1994, so that makes it 31 years old. And much like Tamiya kits, they haven't released anything new per se for 1/32 in that time frame, because these are such great kits that they've been able to hold their own weight for that long. But I think it is getting close to time to start doing new toolings of all these aircraft, because they are starting to show their age with the new technology that's out there for injection molding and 3D printing and everything. So we're going to get into this kit. Again, typical Tamiya box art, perfect. You cut off the top end of it and you have a nice piece of wall art for your wall. And then we go off to the side, and then we have two options right here. One from the 3rd Wing Group Commander's aircraft, and then another from the 18th Wing Group 44th Fighter Squadron right here. Then we flip it over to the other side, and we just have a blurb about the ejection seat and a top and bottom profile of the actual aircraft. So let's get this box opened up, take a look at everything. Again, when we open everything up, it's going to be absolutely packed with plastic, and then I'm going to get everything else out and ready to go, and then we'll start going through everything. Alright, so we're starting off with the instructions in typical booklet form for Tamiya, and then we open it up, and then we have a nice little blurb about the history about the F-15. And then the next page we have our basically our painting, how-tos and all of that. And then getting on to actually starting the kit. So first off, we're starting off with the cockpit and adding the nose landing gear well to the cockpit floor and getting all that done. And then we have the back area here with all of our batteries and electronic boxes in here as well. Then we're adding more pieces to it. Then we start adding our instrument panel in here, and I believe this is one of the an old instrument panel. They have updated this for the MSIP 2, I believe. So there are available upgrades and update sets out there for this. So again, continue on adding more parts for your cockpit, and then we're starting to add in our nose landing gear, our main gear strut, and then our nose wheel. Looks like we're going to have a rubber tire with this, and then it screws into place right here. Alright, then we're adding all that in, and then our ejection seat getting on, and then we're adding in the pilot, if you would like, with the ejection seat and getting that in. And then we have more parts on the back of this fuselage half to liven up that back section right there. And then we have the option of having the panels open on the nose with some electronics in there, and they do use a piece of electronics to cover up the screw that you use to attach the two fuselage halves together. And then after that, we're working on our intakes. I do have the GT resin intakes for this kit, and those absolutely do fit perfectly with a little bit of modification to the kit, and they do look really nice when they're all done. So just adding in all the parts in your variable ramps and getting all those in, and then we're starting off with our exhaust, getting our exhaust in as well. Then we got to add in our gun bay and our gun and all that. I do have the Kopecky vent set for this, so we'll actually be able to see inside of here as well. Then we're moving on to our exhaust, getting all of that on, and then getting some other pieces to the fuselage, in, and then we're adding our main landing gear struts in here, adding some lumps and bumps to the fuselage, and then we're putting the tail end of the fuselage connected with the nose, and then we have our landing gear doors, getting all those on. We have the option, or these will be closed because they are closed when in the landing gear down configuration. They only open up right before the landing gear actually retracts. Alright, and more with the landing gear doors, you have the option of having the doors split open. Like I said, they only open right as the landing gear is retracting upon takeoff, or extending when they're coming into land. Then we're starting off with our wings. With the wings on this kit, alright, so from my previous experience on this, you want to attach the top part of the wings to the fuselage so you get a nice even mating right along the fuselage, because if you attach it like it says in the instructions, you will have a good millimeter step between the top of the fuselage and the wing. And so instead of having to sand that down, take care of all that, you attach the top half of your wing to your fuselage and you are golden from there. And then you attach your bottom part of your wing, get that all on, and then it's easy peasy moving on from there. Alright, and then after that we're starting on our armament and our loadout. So we have our AIM 9s and our AIM 7s, and then our fuel tanks in there, getting all those on. And then after that we are working on our vertical stabilizers, and then we have some blocking panels right here to cover up the screws that you use to attach the wings to the fuselage. Then after that we're starting on our nose radar section, which is a nice full detailed kit in itself. And then we're starting on our instrument combing, and then we have the option of having the nose is movable on this kit as well. Then after that we're getting our canopy work done, having it open or closed in there, and then also with the panel on the nose, you can have that open or close as well. Then your speed brake and the vent that goes up right behind the cockpit. Then you have the option of having your gun panel open as well. It does come with a ladder and wheel chocks and rope. And then after that we get into our color callouts, getting all those on. A lot of nice decals in here on there. And then moving on, we have the top and bottom view of your common stencils and all that. And then you have a paint instruction on how to paint your pilot. Then we have the sprue callout in here, and it tells you which parts you will not be using as well. Or this might be can't tell if that's telling you what we don't use, or nope, that's the color call out for these parts for some reason. That's weird how they did that. But anyways, nice sprue call out on everything, your screws, your screwdriver, wheels, your metal landing gear, and all of that. So we're gonna get into all of that here in a second. Alright, so moving on with our decals, some decent decals. There is a lot of carrier film on these stars right here. That's a very large blob of carrier film, along with all of this, and your refueling probe area is also one large carrier film in there as well, instead of having it separate and cut along the lines. So yeah, there are aftermarket decals out for this, a plethora of them, so might want to look into getting those. Some of these stencils do look nice along here. They do feel a little bit raised, a little bit thick, but shouldn't be too bad on that. Okay, and then we have another decal sheet right here. This is for your tail, your vertical stabilizers, and the lettering that goes on there. Those do look very nice on there as well. And it does come with remove before flight decals. What I recommend is you cut these off and then attach them to some tin foil, and then you can fold the tin foil, and then you can shape it up however you would like. It comes out real nice when that's all done. Okay, so we have our first sprue here, and some very nice panel line and rivet detail along in here. It's nice. It's holding its weight for today. There's not much to this per se. I don't know how you can make this any better than what it is with the basic fuselage detail on here. Alright, so moving on to here, we have our landing gear wells. Again, some nice detail in there with some cabling and wiring and such. And then again on the variable ramps for your intakes. Again, some nice detail for 30 years ago. I'm sure 30 years ago this was absolutely jaw-dropping, beautiful detail on here. But these days it's okay detail. It's not like amazing detail. And then we flip it over to the other side, and on the exhaust right here we do have some rather large ejector pin marks in here, all along here, and then also in our intakes we do have very large ejector pin marks all along in there on both sides, top and bottom of that as well. So you'll have to take care of those because they will be easily visible, because these are such large intakes, so you will be able to see in them for a decent way back, unless you take those variable ramps and you pin them all the way down. So yeah, that's what I think about that. Decent detail along, but like I said, it's 30 years old, and I'm not going to be holding any punches back on Tamiya. We know they build great. We know they go together great, but it's time for new moldings. You've had 30 years. Alright, and then we get this bag. We have a bag of screws, rubber wheels, metal landing gear, and that's going to really help hold the weight of the aircraft, because this is a heavy aircraft when it is built. So, alright, so moving on to our fuselage parts. Again, panel line and rivet detail, from what I can see on areas that would actually have, there might be more rivet detail, but I'm not 100% sure. And the grading here, I know I do have the Kopecky aftermarket set for this, so I will be cutting that out. And I did it on the Strike Eagle, and it just looks 100 times better than what this is right here. So I will definitely be using that set again for the intakes and vents for that. And then everything else, I mean, it looks okay for a Tamiya kit that's 30 years old. Yes, it's holding up its weight very nicely for being such a old kit compared to another manufacturer like Revell or any of those, but still it's like it's time to get with the times type deal. And then flip it over to the other side, the inside of the cockpit area, some decent detail. And then you on your speed brake right here, you have some giant ejector pin marks, and there is no detail on the inside of that. I do know Kopecky does have a speed brake for this, and it does have the full framing to it, so it actually looks amazing when it's put in the up position. And for these panels that you can have in the up position that show your electronic space in the nose, a few very large ejector pin marks on there as well. And then on your main landing gear door right here on your nose, all of those, both of them, you have large ejector pin marks right in there as well, and those are surrounded by raised rivets, so those are going to be sarcastically speaking a ton of fun to remove. And then again on this part, you have these vents right here, and then you have very large ejector pin marks going through there as well. Alright, now going through the clear parts. Clear parts do look nice, nice and clear. They do have this giant seam line down the middle. Again, ops normal for 30 years ago, but today's standard, not satisfactory in my opinion. seam line that goes in there as well. And then your clear parts down here. Luckily this front canopy does not have a seam line down it, and then everything else looks okay. And then again, Tamiya used staples on the freaking clear part bag. Alright, and then continuing on, again, same detail as the rest of the kit. Some nice raised rivet detail on this back piece for your canopy, your main canopy. And then the vents, again, this one is nice because it's nice and hollowed out. But again, I'll be using the Kopecky set because it does look a lot better than that. And then just moving on, we got some other parts in here. Some nice raised rivet and panel line detail in all of these kits as well. Then we flip it over to the other side. If you're going to have these open, I'm not sure if there's two separate pieces, but also on these, I know these will be open right here, and there are ejector pin marks all over in there, and they're surrounded by raised rivets. So yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun trying to get those removed and not ruin any of the rivet detail in there as well. See if you can see the ejector pin marks in there. Alright, so we got our ejection seats, decent detail on those. Yeah, they look good for ejection molding. Not much to it. So yeah, and we get two of these seats, even though it's a single seater, but this is from the Strike Eagle as well. Alright, so we get two of these sprues, and it looks like these are our exhaust pylons and our missiles in here. And the outside of the exhaust do look nice, and then you have these actuator bars that go onto here as well. Again, 30 years ago, I'm sure this looked absolutely amazing, but compared to what's out there today, it just does not hold up to the standard anymore. So, and then we flip it over to the other side, and again, ejector pin marks all over in here, some deep ones that are right in the middle. So again, might have been amazing 30 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago, but today's standard, it doesn't even come close to holding the standard. Alright, so we got another set. This is our cockpit set, and the back here actually does look very nice all around here for ejection molding. I know the resin cockpit sets that are out there do look 100 times better than this, but for ejection molding, this does look very nice along with your instrument panel here. So this so far is probably the best part of the kit, I would have to say. Just moving right along in here, as you can see all the detail in there. Alright, and then moving on, we have more of our exhaust parts right in here. The fan detail looks okay for there, and then your boarding ladder, and then your actuator for your canopy, and another boarding ladder right here as well. And then your landing gear, some of the struts for your landing gear and all of that. Your radar and pitot tubes along in there. Your pilot, again, looks okay for 30 years ago. But yeah, so have to see. And then we flip it around to the other side. Ejector pin marks on the inside of the ladder right here, the bump, so you'll have to take care of that because it will be visible. And then everything else looks okay for that. Okay, and this is our final piece of the box, and this is the lower side of the fuselage. Again, rivet and panel line detail does look very nice. I can't see how they could make any of this part better. The parts that they could make better are the intakes and the exhaust and the landing gear and the cockpit and all of that, but the fuselage still looks absolutely amazing. And I know when you paint it up and everything and weather it, it's going to look great when it's all said and done. But yeah, so just looking around here, and I know the fit is absolutely amazing too, minus the part with the wings like I brought up earlier, but everything else on here looks great. Alright, so that does it for the Tamiya 132nd McDonnell Douglas F-15C Eagle. And my final thoughts on this kit. It's a nice kit. I'm sure 30 years ago when it first came out, it was absolutely jaw-dropping, amazing. The detail on it, I'm sure back then, even up to 15 years ago, I'm sure would have been absolutely amazing and top-notch. But by today's standard, I don't think they meet the standard anymore. I think other companies are starting to take Tamiya's #1 seat in scale models. Like the detail in the trumpeter models, I would say are a lot better than what we have with the Tamiya models. Just per se, I know Tamiya doesn't, or trumpeter doesn't have an F-15, but if I look at their F-14 compared side by side, the trumpeter detail on those are a lot better, and that's just in my opinion. But I mean, other than that, I mean, the kit does look nice, especially for being 30 years old. I think it's time that Tamiya, they need to go through all their 132nd scale aircraft and a lot of their aircraft, and they need to revamp them because all their kits are getting old. I think every one that I've done so far for Tamiya 132nd scale has been 30 years or more of age. I don't think I've done one that's less of 30 years of age. And so yeah, that's what I think. It looks good. We know it builds together very nicely. It just now we need to start, if you want to get it up to a point where it's up to a high standard like I hold myself to on my models, I'm going to have to sink aftermarket into the cockpit, into the exhaust, into the intakes, the vents, all that stuff, and the speed brake. All that stuff needs to be replaced now because it's just not up to par. And then with the giant ejector pin marks, they're all strewn out across the intakes and on the inside of the exhaust and all that. I'm just kind of like, Tamiya needs to up their game now. They need to come back and revamp some of these and do new toolings or something like that, or add new parts with the new toolings. Even if you just did new parts for the intakes and the exhaust and left the fuselage and everything else the same, that would be absolutely great. But as for the rest of the kit, I think it needs upgraded. It's time for an upgrade. But I hope y'all agree or disagree with my verdict of this. If you do, if you've built this kit, don't forget to comment, and also don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and also hit that bell button for future notifications of when I post new content. So I hope you guys enjoyed this build or this unboxing, and until next time, have a great day and stay frosty, my friends.